This video is going to be about applying to universities in the UK as an American. I thought this would be good information for anyone considering it, and I think it's a really good option. And when I was looking into this last year, there wasn't a lot of information online for Americans, and hopefully someone else will find it helpful too. The process can be very different if you're applying for a subject like law or medicine, just because, well, it's much more difficult. I mean, a lot of the information is the same, but like some of the specifics are just for other degrees. Oh yeah, that's another thing I should say is if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, it's also much more complicated and difficult. Entrance exams and stuff like that, earlier deadlines. I didn't apply to either, but if you want to go for it, I would say go for it. So firstly, I want to talk about the pros. I think it's an overlooked opportunity for a lot of American high school students applying to colleges. It's often cheaper to go to university in the UK than in the US. For example, if you're going to like an out-of-state university, it can be like 50 grand, whereas if you're going to a UK university, it can be the same price or cheaper. And in England, it is 3 years, so you're only paying 3 years of tuition, which is a pretty significant portion. Also, that's just another pro in itself, is that a English bachelor's degree is 3 years. You save a lot of time and you come out as a graduate at, age 21. Another part of it being cheaper is that the meal plan is not mandatory. You have the option for catered or self-catered when you're applying for accommodation. Accommodation is also usually cheaper, and it's really nice as well because you're almost always going to have your own bedroom. And in the US, it's very common to have 2 or even 3 or more roommates sharing the same bedroom, whereas in the UK it's almost like commonplace to have your own bedroom, and it'll be cheaper. Also, in terms of academics and the degree, there's integrated master's options, so you can apply directly to a bachelor's degree or like a bachelor's program that has 1 extra year, and you'll come out at the end of it with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in your given subject. The bachelor's degrees in England are 3 years, so if you add on only 1 more year, that's 4 years, so you're going to take the same amount of time as you would for an American degree, and you'll come out on the other end with also a master's degree, so that's pretty cool. Along with that, they also offer integrated industrial experience, or like a year of actual job experience, and often they're paid jobs at a relevant company. It'll be like your first and second year, you'll do, your normal schooling, and then your third year, you go off to work full-time for a real company, and you'll get real-world experience, and you'll get paid, and then come back for your 4th year of schooling. And that's also great because you'll graduate in 4 years with, actual experience that's really valuable, and you can just apply for that as an undergrad. Another pro is that the application process, at least I thought, was way more streamlined and simple than it is in the US. So in the US, you have like multiple different application platforms. You have Common App. You also could apply directly to some universities. The application fees were really expensive too. Like, most of mine were above $50. Like 1 or 2 of them were like $70, $80 for American schools, whereas in the UK you can only apply to 5 total universities, but the cost of the application fee is $35 for all 5 of them, and that saves a lot of money. Instead of Common App, they have UCAS, and I found the UI and like just everything so much easier. I think it's also a really good option if you don't have the strongest GPA or extracurriculars, because those aren't weighed as heavily as they are in the United States. The one thing that they do emphasize is AP scores. So if you have like maybe a lacking SAT or GPA, but you have strong AP scores, that's really what matters to them, because they have A levels over there. I would say that you can probably get into universities considered like above in prestige of what you could in the US as an American student. So for example, the UK university that I'm going to is like top 30 in the world in some rankings, or it's like very highly ranked. I had like decent stats, but My sheer numbers and test scores and GPA and extracurriculars and essays, those would not even get me into a top 30 school in the US. Just the admissions process is much more competitive here, I would say. And you have to do a lot more to stand out. And that kind of goes along with UCAS only limiting you to 5 schools or 5 degrees to apply to. In the US, it's uncapped, so you can really apply to as many schools as you want, and that creates a lot of unnecessary competition, I think. It's also a good option if you are not great at writing essays like me. So the creative writing part of the applications to American colleges was really difficult for me just because I'm not a good creative writer. The UCAS application is great because you only have to write one essay, and it's strictly based around what you want to study and why you want to study it, and then why you're a good student for that subject. Also, this was a big thing for me, is that there's more focused study on your degree, and there's no unnecessary general requirements. So when you're applying through UCAS, you apply directly to a degree that you want to study. Once your university begins, you're going to be studying mostly that specific subject. And that really appealed to me because I'm a STEM person, and English and humanities subjects I have really no interest in studying, so I wouldn't want to pay to take these classes or even other general requirements. I would speculate this would allow you to go deeper into the subject that you are getting the degree for and learn it on a deeper level than you would in America. Again, I haven't started university yet, but that's just how I would figure it, just because you're spending so much more time on the specific subject that you want to study. There are some drawbacks. I mean, you do have to apply directly to a degree, and you can't really switch majors. So in the US, a lot of people apply as undecided. It's very common to switch majors. So unflexibility in your degree program could be kind of daunting. You really have to be set on what you want to do and be sure that you're applying for the degree that you actually want to study, and the degree that you actually want to get and pay money for. So in Scotland, there is some flexibility. There's a little bit, but in England, it is pretty rigid, and if you want to switch degrees, it's quite difficult from what I know. Some people also might find it hard to convince their parents to let them apply to UK universities if their parents are on the fence about going to another country for school, which is totally valid because it's so far, it's very different. If you don't have a lot of experience being far away from home for very long, I can understand. I mean, people get homesick even going to a college in the US as a US native. So now I'm going to go into my experience specifically and my stats, just so you can get a frame of reference. This was the thing that I wanted to know the most when I was looking into applying to UK schools, was how competitive is it? What do Americans typically apply with? Or what scores or grades do they apply with to get into, great UK universities? So I applied to the University of Manchester, the University of Glasgow, UCL, University of St. Andrews, and the University of Edinburgh. I applied to the degree chemistry with industrial experience or job experience at Manchester and Glasgow, and then at UCL, St. Andrews, and Edinburgh, I just applied for the straight chemistry degree. My scores, I applied with a 1480 SAT and then a 3.9 unweighted GPA, 4.7 weighted GPA. Take the GPA with a grain of salt, because especially the weighted one, because that's obviously very different from school to school. From what I've read on the university websites, this is the most important part of your application as an American student to UK schools, is your AP scores. So the scores I applied with were a 5 in AP Stats, a 4 in AP Gov and Politics, and then a 4 in Environmental Science, and a 3 in Physics 1. So not great, but it'll say on the university website what the entry requirements are. So look at the website of the universities you're considering. Because the degree I applied for was chemistry, they did want me to achieve, high scores in AP Chemistry and AP Calc as well in a lot of cases. So I took those my senior year, and I hadn't obviously I hadn't taken those yet when I applied, so I didn't have scores to like send them. But this is also a big part, is getting your AP scores predicted if you haven't taken all the AP classes and exams that are needed to meet your degree entry requirements. So I took AP chemistry, calculus, macro and microeconomics, and then other ones, but I didn't take the exam, so I didn't include them on my application. But for those, I was planning on taking the exams, and because of that, I needed my teachers for those classes to predict the scores that I would get on the exams. My application was submitted December 28th, 2021. So that gave my teachers like a few months of seeing how I like learn and get to know me as a student. And then I asked them, I think like early December, to predict my AP score and send it to my counselor. I don't really know what they predicted because my teachers didn't tell me. I just had them directly send their predictions to my counselor. But I have a good general idea of what I think they predicted. So for AP Chemistry, I would guess that my teacher predicted a 4 or 5. And then for Calc, I think my teacher probably said I would get a 5. And then for Macro and Micro, I had the same teacher, and I think she probably predicted a 4 or 5 as well. So for my personal statement, like I said, you only have to write one and send it to all of the universities, and it's just about why you want to study the degree you applied for. Since I applied for chemistry, I just talked about my fascination for chemistry and then specific topics I found intriguing and wanted to learn more about in university, problems I wanted to solve using chemistry in the future. A lot of mine was environmentally related, and then I also included relevant extracurriculars, for example, like leadership positions in, science-related clubs. I talked about my internship experience, and then any like science-related awards I received, and then how any skills I have will help me succeed in a university environment and why I would be a good candidate for a chemistry degree. And then another part of the application is the letter of reference or letter of recommendation. And for this is also different than the US. You only need one, and it should be by your counselor. It should not be really based on your personality like a lot of US letter of recommendations are. It's more about your ability as a student and your passion for the subject. What I did was I just sent my counselor a Google Doc with like the UCAS website requirements for letter of reference and the general things that should be included in it. And then I also like listed my accomplishments and what I wanted her to include, any things about me that would be relevant to the letter. This is also where she included the predicted scores. You'll either get a conditional or an unconditional offer. If your offer is unconditional, that means that you already met the requirements for entry and you already took the relevant AP exams and scored how high you needed to score. And basically, if you choose that university, your place is secured there. So I first heard back from the University of St. Andrews, and I got a conditional offer based on the condition that I get a 5 in AP Chem. So all of my offers were conditional because I hadn't taken the AP Chem exam or the AP Calc exam yet. I next heard back from the University of Glasgow, and I received a conditional offer, and I needed to achieve a 4 on AP Calc and a 4 on AP Chem. And then I heard from Manchester, and my conditional offer was a 5 on AP Calc, a 5 on AP Chem, and then a 5 in one other subject, as well as graduating with a GPA over 3.0. Next I heard from University of Edinburgh, and my conditional offer was I needed a 4 on AP Calc and a 4 on AP Chem. And then finally I heard from UCL, and it was unsuccessful. I didn't get an offer, so I was rejected. Once you get all your offers, you can firm one and insure one. For me, I firmed Edinburgh and I insured St. Andrews. It really wasn't a good insurance. Usually people will firm a university that they want to go to with higher entry requirements and then insure the one with lower entry requirements, but for me, I felt confident enough that I would get 4s, so that's what I went with. Like I mentioned, I also applied to schools in the US, and I got into my state school early action, which is UMD, and that's a great school, so I also committed to UMD in the US in case I didn't meet the entry requirements. In case I bombed my AP exams or something, I would have somewhere to go. Then came May, and it can be kind of stressful because by May, everyone else has usually already committed to the university that they're going to, in America at least, because usually the deadline to commit is May 1st. But, AP exams are in May. So I committed to UMD, but I also took my AP exams, and then I luckily got a 4 on AP Chem and a 4 on AP Calc. So once those results came out in July, my place was confirmed at University of Edinburgh, and then I withdrew from UMD, and basically I'm set on going to Edinburgh. So now I'm just going to go through the general UCAS application process for Americans and just some advice. Like I said, you can apply to up to 5 universities. You should do research on the specific course that you wanted to study, and if you want to apply to a degree that has an integrated master's or job experience, try to apply to reaches, matches, and safeties just like you would in the US, I would say, even though there's only 5 options. Make sure that you look at the entry requirements for Americans. Entry requirements can be found on the relevant university website, and just Google whatever university entry requirements, find the American one, and find the specific degree that you want to do because they differ from subject to subject. They have a big emphasis on AP, so make sure that if you are considering going to the UK, you are taking enough AP classes, or the ones that need to be taken to apply for the degree that you want. So your personal statement is, I think it's a less than 4,000 character essay about why you want to study the subject you're applying for and why you're a good student for it. There's a lot of examples on the internet that can be found for UK personal statements. There's this website called the Student Room, and they have examples for like basically every subject you can imagine, personal statements, and that's really helpful because it gives a good idea of what they're looking for in a personal statement in the UK. It can be hard to sift through, but it's a good resource to find what exactly they're looking for in the essay. Moving on to predicted grades, this was the part that I found the most confusing because it's so unheard of in the US to like predict things and then have your university decision based on a predicted grade or predicted outcome. So if you're currently taking the class that you need to meet the entry requirements, you have to get your AP scores predicted by your teachers, and they don't really tell you exactly what to do. But what I did worked out for me, so I would recommend it. It was pretty simple. I would say just ask your teachers maybe like a couple months into school and have them send their prediction to your counselor so that they can include it in their letter of rec. At least that worked for me. It's also okay to wait a little into the school year because the deadline, I think, for international students is in June, but you can apply earlier, which is what I did. I applied late December just because I wanted to get my decisions back as soon as possible. This is also a cool thing is that it's basically kind of like rolling decisions, so it's up in the air when you could get your decision. For your letter of rec, make sure you talk to your counselor and tell them that you're applying to universities in the UK. Tell them about the UCAS system. Make sure you're having enough communication so that they understand what's going on, especially if they don't have experience with their students applying to universities in the UK, because it is very different to the US college recommendation. Make sure you're providing them with all of the resources that you can to help them make their letter of reference as good as possible and as well suited as possible for the UK system. And I think that was it. All you have to do is pay the application fee, which, like I said, is like $35 for all 5 universities. And then you just have to wait for your decisions. So if you do get an offer, which is great, by the way, if you do get an offer that's conditional, it can be kind of stressful because the AP results don't come out until July usually. It'll all be okay. They have a similar timeline for exam results in the UK as well, so it's not too unheard of for things to be cutting it close, I guess. If you firmed a university with higher entry requirements and you don't meet them, hopefully you insured a university that has lower entry requirements and you meet them. If you do meet them, then your place will be confirmed at your insurance university, and then if not, if you don't meet the requirements for either, hopefully you apply to a safety in the US or something like I did. After that, the next thing to do is apply for your student visa once your place is confirmed, and that's just a whole mess and something I'm going through right now. Yeah, I hope this was helpful for anyone going into their senior year of an American high school and considering applying to schools in the UK. I think it's a great idea. Like I've said, I have like almost only good things to say about it, and I'm very excited to be starting this fall at the University of Edinburgh. That's where I'm going. Good luck, you guys. All you juniors going into senior year, you got this. And if you're considering going to the UK, dope. Definitely give it a shot.